Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, dependent, of course, on when and where you are joining us from. Welcome to the EPN podcast, a podcast that has been designed to demystify the sales profession and remove some of the stigma that is surrounding it. Now, we're looking to do that by speaking with various salespeople to talk through their journey in sales, sharing some tips, tricks, and insights throughout. Now, today we are joined by Thomas Peach. Now, Thomas and I met each other via the EPN as we're both ambassadors. Thomas is currently working as a commercial finance broker at Honey Asset Finance. And he's one of the fortunate few, I guess you could say, to have completed a BCS Professional Practice degree in business to business sales at Middlesex University. So definitely keen to touch on that throughout the session. Now, conscious I've been talking for quite a while. So, Thomas, did you want to introduce yourself and just share a little bit more info?
Yeah, certainly. So I'm Thomas Peach. I work as a commercial finance broker. And so a bit background about me. I'm 22. I've worked in sales for the last 3.5 years, having come on into sales via a degree apprenticeship route, as Jordan mentioned. Before that, I was sort of studying to work in finance, so sort of studying economics and subjects such as that. And that sort of led me into the commercial finance route. Aside from that, aside from my degree studies, I've also done sort of other bits and pieces. I'm a beekeeper and quite a big rugby fan.
Fantastic. I enjoy watching rugby. Used to love playing it when I was younger, mainly just because I was quite quick. When I was young, I was a winger. So the ball would come to me and then I'd just sort of tunnel vision run. Brilliant. So curious, what was it that piqued your interest in a career in sales? And then what motivated you to take the step to pursue a career in the field?
Yeah, certainly. So as I mentioned, when I was in sort of sixth form doing my A-levels, I was always interested in a career in finance. And as part of that, sales is quite a big part. And so when I left sixth form, I sort of was looking for a role that would encompass those two interests. At the time, it was sort of COVID. So I was sort of doing a different role at the time. However, because of my sort of interest in this, I got talking to someone who runs the finance brokerage locally. As a result of this conversation, it led on to its work experience, and as a result of that work experience, it led on to my role as a degree apprentice. The reason I chose to pursue that was because, for me, sales is the cornerstone of an economy. Obviously, you've got people who produce goods and services, but you're not going to have anything tangible unless there's someone there to sell it on to other people. And in addition to that, I also saw that there's quite a lot of career progression in sales. You can be sort of, obviously, as I do now, or you can be a sales manager, or you can be sort of a wider sort of country sales director. And I liked that progression. I also saw that it was more of a meritocracy, say, than other sectors, in the sense that if you're good at what you do, you tend to be promoted. And I liked that in the sense that really gave me the drive and the ambition to really push myself and apply myself to the job role that I was doing at the time and still am doing.
Yeah, it's a great point there, and I love the idea of a meritocracy. There's some really insightful research that's recently been released by a chap called Jeff Risley that was focusing more on the mental health of salespeople. And one of the key outcomes or key findings, should I say, was that quite a great impact or influencer of mental health for salespeople is that clarity over career progression. And he actually found that 55% of salespeople that were interviewed or surveyed stated that they didn't feel that they had that clarity. So I think if organizations can provide that to salespeople, then it really lays out those steps to progress. Now, throughout your career, I imagine there's been some challenges that you've faced, whether that's balancing the workload between the degree and full-time work. Are there any standouts, and do you have any tips and tricks for overcoming any challenges when you are faced with them?
Yeah, definitely. I think the best bit of advice that I was given was that you've got to adapt and overcome. And that applies for the degree course as well as my job role. In the sense that you might have a deadline that's coming due, and then you've also got a deadline coming due within your job role, and you've just got to prioritize which one at the time is most pressing. Do that, overcome that, and then adapt and get on with the other task. In addition to that, one key one that I still apply, well, I continue to apply both learnings, but one that I really do apply, we've got the little bit of paper glued onto my desk, is think clearly under pressure. And again, that applies to both. In sales, it's quite high times. It can be quite high pressure. So you can get involved in quite high pressure situations. And in the degree course as well, as I said, if you're meeting a deadline, it's quite high pressure. And it's just about analysing what you've got to do, thinking clearly, thinking out a structure and a plan, and just following that plan. Because otherwise, you've got a tendency to wobble a bit. I think those are really the two key things.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. It's that idea of triaging as much as possible. And one of the practices that I've put in place is color coding my calendar. It looks like a bit of a rainbow and can give you a bit of a headache, but it does help. I've got sort of must complete, should complete, could complete. So when I am pressed for time, I know that I can get rid of some or delay some of those could complete, which is great. And then the other image that came to mind when you said about staying cool in high pressure situations, an ex-colleague of mine had a very cool tattoo, and she honored the tattoo. It was an ice cube on fire, it was telling exactly that story. And I love that image. Oh, brilliant. So you touched on adapt and overcome, which is so crucial when you are operating in sales, because we are the front line for any business. And as a result, we often feel the brunt of any shifts in the market or buyer behaviors. Are you able to walk me through your process for, staying adaptable throughout those periods? Do you have any sort of best practices that you like to follow?
Yeah, sure. So in relation to staying adaptable, I think one key part that I learned from the degree course that I continue to apply is reviewing and applying learnings. So within the degree course, what we were taught was at the end of every single assignment or every module, you would analyse what you didn't know beforehand, what you've learned, how you're going to apply that moving forwards. And I think that's, as a result of that, the result of 3 years of the degree of constantly doing that, that's now become ingrained in my sales practice. So in order to continue to adapt, what I do is sort of at the end of the day or at the start of the day, depending how busy the day before was, I look at what I knew before, new information that's come in for a deal or a transaction, and then analyze how I'm going to apply that new information, how that's going to affect my process moving forwards. And that simple compartmentalization of information and then reapplying it just really keeps you cool under pressure. Because as you can imagine, you've got information flying at about 4 million miles an hour, and it's just about stopping, looking what you knew, what you now know, and how are you going to use that information to move forwards. And I think that's probably the key, because otherwise you just, you said you've got information coming everywhere, and it's hard to sort of gauge what's useful and what isn't useful.
Yeah, I love that. I've definitely been in those situations where you feel like you get caught in the hamster wheel because you've got so much information, so much to do, and sometimes the best thing you can do is stop, lift your head, and as you said, review, so that next action is more impactful.
Mm.
Brilliant. I wanted to go into a bit more detail on the degree. Now, I know that it was something that you had your sights set on during your time during the internship. How did you manage that conversation with the business about them supporting you to go and complete the degree?
Yeah, definitely. So in terms of it background, I at the time in 2020 when I finished my A levels, I was working at sort of a retail store. I got talking to the owner of the business I currently work for, and they offered me, because of the conversation I had, they offered me a week's work experience. Over the course of that week's work experience, I demonstrated that I could apply myself to the role, and so the conversation of sort of joining the company came about. In terms of the degree conversation, it was more so that the way I viewed it was that I was joining the company, and I wanted to obviously get a degree, but also I wanted to be able to apply that learning to my job role and through osmosis sort of apply that to the company that I was working for. So as a result of that, that's what sort of prompted them to have that conversation. In terms of the actual conversation, it was more so just, I want to work with you, but I want to, obviously I want to get a degree out of it and apply that learning to your business. It was more so for me about showing commitment to the company, because obviously I could have taken the job, but I don't have any real commitment apart from just turning up to work. Whilst with the degree, it was 3 years of solid work, full-time work and full-time degree. And I just thought that was the best way to really get myself into the company and into the sector, into sales and into the financial sales as well. And so as a result, I did that, and I'd like to think I've done all right.
Yeah, it's a really powerful story, especially considering as you said, the influence that sales does have over GDP. I read somewhere that B2B sales influences 40% of GDP, which is huge, but sales isn't included in business education at the moment. I mean, were there any resources or that you leveraged in learning more about what those potential options for sales education were?
Yeah, as in prior to the degree or during the degree?
Well, both.
Both, yeah, sure. So in terms of prior to the degree, there wasn't overly much information, and I think subsequently I have gone back and looked at it, and there's far more information now, and it's only been 3 years or so, 3-4 years from when I first started. And I think that's just down to the work of the EPN and the ISP, really getting the word out there that shouting from the rooftops that B2B sales is this profession that runs the economy essentially. In terms of going back to when I first started, it was more so just reading about sort of other sort of sales operations, so sort of Royal Mail, the effectiveness of their program in terms of sales education, and really just seeing that, okay, yeah, this is something that can be effective in terms of developing myself personally, but also developing within my role. And then, as I said, subsequently, there's been far more information put out there, and again by the EPN and by the ISP. So it's certainly a different world from when I first entered.
Indeed. Ever changing is the field of sales. Now, I can see the passion firsthand that you have and the commitment that you have to your personal and professional development. I'm sure you've picked up some great habits throughout the degree. Are you able to share some of those and also share a bit more information about what you're planning to do next in terms of professional development?
Yeah, sure. So in terms of learnings from the degree, we've touched on sort of the review aspect, which is key to my current job role, as we said. In addition to that, it's just also the idea that when you're doing the degree, obviously you do a full day's work. And as with sales, sometimes it's early starts, and sometimes it's late finishes, and then you've got to go back and do that work. So it really develops that commitment aspect, that I was touching on earlier, that, you've got to do this, you've got to do your job role, do it well, and you've got to do your degree, do it well. And I think that was very, very key in terms of setting the work ethic that I now carry forwards. In addition to that, I think the degree certainly helped in terms of my ability to understand people, and that's partly due to what the degree course has, so sort of psychology of sales and other areas such as that, and sort of strategic sales and insights, as well as just you start to analyze your own practice a bit better, and with the learnings from the degree, you can really start to build out what strategy works for you. The thing about sales is you've got your key areas of sales and your key key strategies and different types of sales, but there's a lot of molding and a lot of individuality in it. So my sales process and sales strategy is different from bosses, it's different from my colleagues, and it's different from someone in a completely different sector. And I think the degree course really helped to cement my type of sales strategy within this role. And I've seen a remarkable increase since doing that in terms of my ability in sales and also the satisfaction of my customers who keep coming back. And I think that's largely attributable to the learnings there.
Yeah, but it sounds like a really great setup. Well, I'm sure it's a lot to manage, but I think the issue with a lot of sales training currently is it's great for the acquisition of the knowledge, but not so good with the application. So not so good at turning that knowledge into skills and behaviors. So it sounds like the doing those together, the study with the full-time work is a great way forward for people that are considering a career in the profession. Now, conscious of time, I've got one final question for you, Thomas. What advice would you give to anyone that may be listening that is perhaps considering a career in sales or potentially just started on their journey in sales?
Okay, certainly. So in terms of someone who's considering a career in sales, I would definitely start by researching the area of sales you want to get to, because sales obviously is this word, but there's all these different niches. So I operate within financial sales. Then you've also got house selling, other other service selling, so software sales, accounting sales. So I would first look and see where your interests lie initially, excluding sales. And so just so you're gauging what niche you want to get into, and then I would look into the sales process, the sales operation of that one's niche. So as my background, I was interested in finance, and as a result, I went into financial sales. So that incorporated my key interest and then sales as well, and my other interest. So as a result of that, it's something that I'm very passionate about, because otherwise, if you just go into sales, you might fall into an area and you're not. You can, over time, it will become your passion, but it's best to start on the right foot. And in terms of someone who's been in sales or just starting out in sales, I would, and it's a bit cliche, but I would find a mentor. I would find someone who has been in this role for a fair amount of time and who you could just bounce ideas off of. Because I've had it where, I'm doing something and I think it's the right thing, and it turns out to be the wrong thing, or maybe not, maybe just needs slight adjustment to really, get to the right point. And in addition, it adds an area of community probably in terms of within your organization. Because what it does is it means that you can bounce ideas with them, but then they most likely will learn something off of you. And I've had it within my own organization where I've been doing something and I've gone, oh, is this the right thing to do? And they go, hang on, that's quite a good idea. We've never thought about it that way. And so then that really helps to just bring the further development into yourself and also into the company, and it creates a stronger team, I found. And so that's definitely something I would do. And in addition to sort of joining the EPN and the ISP as well, because then that provides an even broader group to go to of sort of new people within the space that you can sort of get bounce ideas off and learn from.
Yeah. It can be so easy to get caught up and in this sort of myopic view of what you're doing, that niche. So love the mentorship piece. 1, 2, 3, as long as it's manageable, but you want that variety of perspectives, because as you said, sometimes you might teach them something or broaden their view of the world, which is fantastic. Now, Thomas, that has been a really great session. Thank you very much for joining me on your day off, might I add. So I'm going to let you go and enjoy your day off. Again, thoroughly enjoyed that. If people do want to reach out to you, where's the best place for them to do that?
Yeah, sure. If you just ping me a message on LinkedIn, then I'll be sure to ping back.
Brilliant. And to our listeners, thank you very much for joining us. I'm going to put a link to a campaign that we're running, lobbying for sales to be included in business education. It takes about 10 seconds to add your name to the list of signatories. So all support is much appreciated. But until next time.